Can you hear me now? All right. I just want to reiterate what Dr. Shaw said. This team that's sitting in front of you has been working together for about a year and a half. And we came into this with huge excitement because we knew that there were a lot of processes in human resources that needed to be modernized and updated, and that we could take away a lot of that pen and pencil pieces of the work that we were doing in both payroll and human resources. And so at the end of this time, as we've come to the end of our formalized training, we are more excited than we were before. And you're going to see and hear some of that today as we share some of that excitement with you. And in order to do that, I want to thank several people. I want to introduce the team for anyone in the audience who does not know them. Over here we have Ali and Grace and Carol and Danielle and Deborah and Terry and Patty. And over here we have Junior. And we have Cindy Bryan with Ellucian, who has been with us and taken us just to a great place of where we're going. Monitoring behind the curtain, sort of like the Wizard of Oz for us today, is Todd Gutierrez, and he is our IT person. Did he come out and say hello? Thank you, Todd. All right, so one of the things, I want to set some parameters, first of all, and one of those things is I would ask you to hold your discussion points, your questions until the end, because we'll have a lot of time to do that. A lot of times, those discussion points or questions will be answered within the next slide or two. So if you can just hang on to those, we'll have a lot of time, and the entire team and Cindy will be here to answer any questions that you might have. The second parameter I want to share with you is that a lot of what you're going to see is what we have just learned, are learning, and some of it's in the future. So if we are not able to give you in-depth today the answers that you're seeking, we will definitely be able to give those to you shortly. I'm going to talk about the human resources piece first, and then the payroll pieces, because although they are really interwoven, they are sometimes a bit separate in the processes. So some of the things that we covered with a colleague in human resources as the team is group termination practices, rapid rehire practices, what those look like, how do we do batch wage increases and batch benefits updates. You're going to hear a lot about that and what a great process we now have for that, and some performance management. Some of the reporting tools that we use, you will definitely recognize some of these. The Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System, everybody in the world knows that as Ipeds, usually coming out of Dr. Shaw's team, but we do work with that also. Certainly the Compensated Absence Report, you're going to hear a lot more about that when Danny is up talking. Additional delivered reports that she'll be talking about. And this thing that we all laughed about when we first heard it, and now we've come to love it. CROA is how that's pronounced. And it is the College Reporting Operational Analytics. It's a great thing. So I'm going to step aside, and we're going to talk about group termination of records, not humans. And Junior and Terry are going to go ahead and take over that.
Okay, well, we're going to go into the group termination. It was a 3-step process. At the beginning of a year and a half ago when we started this, we came to a realization that we're going to have to do a big cleanup. What do we mean? What do we mean with that is that according to the reports, we had over 8,395 positions open since 1995. Now, in essence, that means that we had 8,395 employees, which we all know and it's not the case. We have around 1,000 to 1,100 employees on payroll. So that meant a huge cleanup we had to do. We also learned that everything that we were going to be learning in the future depended on the cleanup to be done. So we had to go step by step, and we learned the 3-step process. Number 1 will be the group termination, and for that, Terry will be explaining each of the steps and how is it that we got to that point.
Okay. First of all, before I go into the 3-step process, I'd like to explain a little bit about how we got to this point in the first place. When we first went to DataTel back in 1999, we were not afforded the luxury of having consultants like we do or have had for the last 18 months. HR was given 7 3-inch binders and told, this is what you do to get you into the system. That's it. We were left on our own. And I'm pretty sure that some other areas of the college were in the same situation. Since we weren't aware of all the processes that were available, so years of just ending a wage record when a work study or college payroll or part-time employee left instead of terming the position. That's why we ended up with all these open positions. So in order to clean up the records, we went to a 3-step process. And the first thing was to identify all of the employees' records who had not been active within the last 2 years. So that meant going from 1999 to 2012. One of our first elution consultant for this, Tara, helped us by creating saved lists of employees within like a 2-year span. And as she was creating those lists, she was handing them out to myself, Patty, Deb, Ruth, Danielle, and Junior, and we were going in and deleting or terming those people. Once all that termination had taken place, a report was run, and I'm a visual person, so that report was 333 pages long, and this is that report. And you can see how many, it's a full list. The only blanks in between are people that had multiple positions attached to them. So that was the second step in the process, was to go through and identify all the people that had more than one position. And if you will click to the next one, this is a sample of one person's record. This one particular person had 25 open positions, dating from 1999 to current, because that person is still active. The column with the red arrow above it is the end date column. That was open because those positions were still open. What I had to do was go through and look at each position, detail down to find the budget code that position was being paid from, run a payroll history report to see when that position was last paid, so I would know what date to use as an end date for that record. I took this large report, did that for all full-time employees and all adjunct faculty. Once I did that, another list was run to clean up things. That list was a little bit smaller. It was now down to this size. Once I got it to that size, I passed it off to Junior so he could do the same process with college payroll, work studies, and part-time employees. Once we got to the point, got the people and the positions ended that needed to be, we got the people and the multiple positions ended, we had to go in and end all the positions that were no longer being used. Each position, there are detail screens on each position. You create a position, you detail in for a wage record, then you detail again for the budget code and everything that goes along with it. So to end a position, you go into the wage record first, end that record, then end the wage record, and a total so far of 1,205 records have been ended that are no longer going to be used. And that's the big reason for the having to get things cleaned up going on from this point. And when Junior finishes his part with the part-time list, we'll have to run another list and see which other positions can be ended. And that was a lot of work, and I'm tired.
Thank you, Terry. So as we can see by the screenshots, and as Terry was saying, this was a very intensive labor, and we were having to detail in each screen. You can imagine the work that we had to do in order to get those 1,205 positions down. That also meant that we had to create new positions for those people that were going to come into those positions. Now, so that's why group termination was such a big help and something we learned with the help of our consultants. And this is something we'll be continuing using through the upcoming years to keep the system or the records in colleague clean. Now for this, we need also everybody's help. What do I mean with that? Well, we're going to be ending the student employee records on colleague every college academic year, sorry. And we're going to be ending the part-time employee records each fiscal year in colleague. For that, the supervisor then needs to also submit a new part-time requisition only for those that are coming back. And it's very important for those supervisors to submit a separation of employment when the employee leaves. Otherwise, that record could stay open and we could end up with another 8,000 in the upcoming years. So again, we're going to be ending the academic year for the student employees, that's student workers, federal work study, and college payrolls, and part-time at the end of the fiscal year. We're also going to be using group termination to end any inactive adjunct position as they come up.
And let me just insert here, in the past with adjunct faculty, we've kind of kept the position open for up to 5 years, just in case they might come back in another semester or two. That's going to be reduced to a 1-year period or 3 semesters, depending on if they're like spring, summer, and fall, so that those records are only kept open for a 1-year period. And then if they come back, we can use rapid rehire, which is another thing that we'll get into later down the road.
Yep. So that was about group termination. Now I'm going to go a little bit more detail into rapid rehire, but I want to give thanks to Terry for joining us. What is rapid rehire? Well, after we group term all those people and we're terming people, we learn this new process. What it does is it streamlines the process to rehire an employee. We utilize this process to rehire any returning part-time employees each fiscal year. As the previous slide showed, we're going to end the part-time at the end of the fiscal year. With rapid rehire, we can easily or faster rehire those people. But again, the supervisor must submit a part-time rec for those part-time employees that are coming back. That's around May or June. You'll be notified within time to submit that. And this is part-timers. This also helps to expedite the rehiring previous employees on an ongoing basis. What we mean with that is that if an employee leaves, let's say in March, and wants to come back in May, this process helps to do that a lot faster. It also ensures that no steps are missed and eliminates any manual process. For part-timers, we have an average of 500, and student workers an average of 130. So you can imagine how much manual entry that is. Rapid rehire does help a lot with that. If you have any questions, again, at the end of we'll have a discussion time where you can ask that question. Now, with this also came batch wage increase, and we're going to get a little more detail with that, and I'm going to ask Patty to join me. Now, what is batch wage increase? Now, it's a process that we learn again to eliminate manual entry for each employee. What it does is that it helps us we can use it in multiple occasions. We can use it whenever there's a minimum wage increase, which is happening on January 1st, 2015. All the part-time that are getting paid $790, all the student workers, again, that is federal work study and college payroll, will be going up to $805. Now, this batch wage increase helps to process those, both the part-time and the student workers. Now, for the student workers, there is an additional action needed from the supervisor. There was an email sent from financial aid, I believe a couple weeks ago, notifying of what documents needed to be turned in order for them to be rehired with the new academic year. For the part-time, there is no additional action required for the supervisors. But we can also use it with full-time, and for that, Patty will take over.
Hello. This process will create a new wage record for each group of employees instead of doing it individually. By doing this process, it will save many hours instead of entering 436 notice of appointment and advices manually. This process will create a work file that we're able to view, edit, and report into colleague. I will be using this new process this coming fiscal year, and I'm going to go ahead and use it for those that take advantage of educational growth as well.
And this is just a screen print of what it looks like. We first create the work file that includes those employees that fit that criteria. For example, the student workers and part-time, they get paid $7.90. We pull them up, and we can detail into each person and see the increase that's going to go up. And if a person's not supposed to be in that list, we can easily delete it. Again, this is just prints out from our Illusions manual, so these are not our employees. But this is just as an example of how easy it is. We can go in, and once we click yes at the bottom, we put a yes, it automatically does the increase for us. Before, we had to manually go into each employee and do a manual increase. So it was a lot of work. Now, we also had batch benefit updates.
I'm excited for this process as well. I'm going to go ahead and use it for next open enrollment, which is in July 1st. It streamlines the process. There are 3 batch processes for benefits. It updates the cancel, enroll, and replace. This will eliminate manual data entry and save many hours of work. I had to work day and night to complete the open enrollment. Performance management. We will have the ability to keep track of employees' evaluation and colleague based on their 3, 6, and annual for all professional, administrative, and classified employees. A core report can be created and distributed to supervisors when employees' evaluations are due.
So that was, again, performance management and batch benefits updates. Now we're going to invite Danielle Lawson. Thank you, Patty. To give us a more deep look into the reporting tools that we learn and that we now have available.
I'm really excited, and I think the team's excited too about some of the reporting tools that we've learned. One of the most important pieces and the most helpful is going to be the Ipeds report that is offered and we have available to us from colleague. Again, Ipeds stands for the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System. And it's the primary source for colleges and universities and other post-secondary educations in the United States. We work in collaboration with Dr. Shaw and her team to provide the HR data each year. So the first piece of this is that it's still going to be ongoing as we continue that big cleanup that we've been talking about. One of the biggest things that we had to do to get ready, to get the Ipeds report ready, was to identify SOC codes or standard occupational classification codes for every single position that we have in colleague. In order to run the Ipeds report, a SOC code had to be identified for every single position, so the team really worked hard on that. It took days for us to complete that. So once all the information is in colleague, we build a work file that allows us to export the information, look over all of the data, verify it, correct it as we need to, and then the most beneficial piece to this is that this information can be imported directly onto the Ipeds website, saving days and hours of time doing manual entries onto the Ipeds website. And again, we'll have the opportunity to update and verify information on that website as well. So. Going forward, you will start seeing SOC codes on every job description. If you have a new or updated job description or a new posting that comes out, you'll start seeing these SOC codes identified on the top of those, so if you're wondering what those are. And again, we plan to use the Ipeds report for the April 2015 reporting, so hope it all goes well. These are just some examples of the data that the Ipeds HR portion request. They look for numbers of employees that we have in each category. One is just the gender, race, and ethnicity. And then you'll see the 6-digit numbers. Those are the SOC codes I've been talking about. There's different classifications for post-secondary education teachers, service occupations, clerical, etc. The next big report that we've discovered in colleague is the Compensated Absences Report, or the CMAB report. This report is going to be very beneficial when every year we work in collaboration with the finance department to developed the vacation sick leave liability report. So it allows us to input the information that we need in colleague, and it can give us the beginning hours and amounts, and the compensated absences report will give us that total fringe benefit amount or the cost to the college, the liability. Some of the other additional delivered reports that we have started utilizing are the person's earnings and benefits, the new hire report, employee analysis, and person's leave analysis report. In addition to all of those, as many of you know, we have the CROA, as Ruth mentioned. It's the Colleague Operational Analytics Reporting. And what we've done with that, we have a number of reports that we used to utilize queries for, so out of Query Builder. So now all of those have been input into CROA, and we use those for different required reporting for the Arizona State Retirement System, the Department of Labor. We get additional requests working with Dr. Shaw in her area for the Higher Learning Commission. The Faculty Senate asks us for information. And then there are also annual salary surveys that we can pull CROA reports to get any of the information. And the best part is that we know the information is accurate. And again, Patty and myself are the human resources architects. So, lastly, on the reporting piece, we have this new product that is available, and we already currently own it. It's Position Control. And what Position Control does is that it assigns slots to each category or a position in colleague. So, for example, a custodian, it would assign, if we have 10 custodian positions and it's all tied to a budget, it'll assign a slot number. So what this can allow us to do is it'll give us an accurate head count of how many employees we have in each category. So this is going to be really helpful for additional reports that specifically ask for how many incumbents we have in a secretary position, how many incumbents we have in a custodian, and et cetera. So the biggest piece of that is that it's going to be able to give us accurate records, and we can run two different reports, one that gives us a head count report of the actual and the intended, so we can see how many vacancies we have in each area. Again, another piece that's coming with this is position budgeting, which will be even more beneficial to the HR and Finance Department once that is released in 2016. So that's all I have.
All right, well, thank you, Danielle. So that was the reporting part. So far we've discussed what HR, the optimization part of HR. Now we're going to invite Ruth to talk about the best practices optimization that happen within payroll. She's going to introduce us with that.
Okay, thanks, Junior. We are going to talk about some best practices optimization and how that works and what went on. The areas that were covered by the payroll and colleague pieces: quarterly reporting and payroll taxes, import tax tables for both federal and state entities, deductions in arrears, deferred pay, and web entry time. That's something brand new, and I know you're all on the edge of your seats here today to talk about that, and we cannot wait to share some of that information with you. So that's the overview, and Deborah's going to come up again, and she's going to talk to us about the taxes and some of the payroll pieces of that.
Thank you. I'm just going to touch briefly on these two items because they're great for me, but they don't have a lot of impact outside my office. The first thing is the quarterly reporting. Every quarter, I have to do 4 quarterly reports. Probably the most, there, it went louder, didn't it? Wow. Hey, that's how it works. In the past, I've had 4 quarterly reports. In the past, I have utilized spreadsheets, utilized many reports and everything to get them done. Through this optimization, I found out about a single report that will give me all the information I need. So a process that used to take me 3-4 hours, now I can get it done in an hour. So that's really a big savings on everything. As for the the importing of the tax tables, that used to be a manual process as well. I would go to the IRS website, get the Circular E, which is the publication that the IRS gives out notifying us of the new taxes, then input them all manually. Looked up there. Now, Aleutian has a way, they will go in, they will get the tax tables ready, input them into the colleague, and then all I have to do is go in, enter a year, hit enter, and then it's all in there for me. So I love that. So yeah, it went from 2 hours with putting it in and checking and rechecking to make sure I didn't make any mistakes down to 5 minutes. So we like that. Or at least I like that. And now Patty is going to be talking about deductions and arrears.
Deductions and arrears. What is it? It's an employee benefit. It allows employees to continue benefit coverage during a leave of absence when they're not getting paid. Allows for prepayment and or repayment to make through payroll processing or accounts receivable. If someone goes on FMLA and they don't have, they're changing, let's say they're leaving on maternity leave and they have a baby and they want to pay the coverage for the baby, they're able to work that with the human resources or accounts receivable. People that go on leave of absence without pay, they could do that as well. Or or an employee that has a reduced pay situation and cannot cover the full cost themselves. This creates a receivable to track money owed, and this process was done manually. Now it's automatically in colleague.
Okay, and now it's time for the deferred pay. Deferred pay relates to anyone who is not on a 12-month contract. There's faculty, there are some PAs who only work 9, 10, 11 months, and this relates to them. Their notice of appointment. What happens there is that anyone who needs to have their pay deferred is entered in with certain codes, certain pay classes into colleague that will basically expense the amount of their contract over their contract period. And then from then on, have the rest of the contract pulled out of this deferred account. This is a big help when it comes to accruals. There will be no need for accruals for these people because it would already have been expensed to the year that it should be expensed in. Another big thing about this is if an employee should leave before their appointment is up, in the past, either Patty or Terry or I have had to manually compute the payout of their contract. Now, with deferred pay, all we have to do is go to a certain screen, and it will tell us the remainder that needs to be paid out for them. And so that is deferred pay, and that's a big thing, too. We like that one, too. And here is something to be really excited about. Bet you can't tell we're a little excited about that. I'm sorry. We're a little excited about this. Reason being is it will be a huge time saver. I want to tell you a little bit about the life of a time card and what it goes through. Okay, from the time I get the file, I have to make the file in a format that I can send it out to each supervisor. The supervisor then sends the time card to their employee. Employee fills it out, gives it back to their supervisor. Supervisor brings it to me, either via the internet, email, or walk it to my office. Once it comes to payroll, then it has to be alphabetized, audited, input, and the report rechecked. Just the last 3 alone are a 2.5-day process. Now with web time entry, the the employee can go in and basically fill out their time card anywhere. They can go fill it out if they're, via their phone, via a tablet, via, anywhere where there's a computer with internet access, they can do it. Same with the supervisors. Anywhere they have access to the internet, they can fill it out. So this just saves, right there alone, 2.5 to 3 days, which is like a big win for us. And now I will turn it, and also I wanted to make the point of saying that it does do away with the human error factor of this, because it will be put into the system and all the calculations will be done by the computer. And now I'm going to turn it over to Junior.
Yeah, thank you. So there's also a lot more benefits that comes with that. As Debbie was saying, she also mentioned how it eliminates the human error. Before, you had to go in, input the numbers, check it, input the numbers. I mean, you imagine going through all those part-time and college payroll and work studies. Now, the employees, another great benefit is employees don't have to wait for the time cards. This is going to make a big impact for the new fiscal year for those part-timers. As you all know, you receive the first two or the last two paper time cards of the fiscal year, and then also you get them in the first two of the new fiscal year. Now it's all going to be done on WebAdvisor. It also eliminates the need to physically deliver the time card to payroll, which if you're off, you might turn it in late, then it slows the process. How does it work? What happens now is that once the employee submits their time at the end of the pay period, it sends an immediate email to the supervisor letting them know that the employee has submitted their time. Now, the supervisor has a due date to go in and either approve or reject the time. Once the time is approved, then it goes immediately to payroll to get processed. This saves daily data entry for payroll. It also saves, as we know, a lot of time, paper, and ink. Now, I know all of us or all of you are wondering, when can we start this? Who can start this? When? Due to the fact that it is something new, completely new, it's a big change. We want to start with a small group based on the assistance that we got from our consultants. So we're going to start off with student workers. We all know that student workers are financial aid work study and college payroll. Those are all the ones that are starting on January 1st, 2015. Part-time are starting July 1st, 2015. Again, this is a process that we have to clean up all those records. Remember those 8,000 records in order for this to work. Now, there's 130 combined student workers that we already cleaned up in order for this to happen, but we're still working towards that goal of July 1st. Now, this is going to take a lot of training. I shouldn't say a lot. It's going to take some training. It is so simple. For that, we have 2 sessions or 2 different days, one tomorrow. If you are a supervisor for student workers, you should have gotten an email letting you know about tomorrow's training. There is 2 sessions, one at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., and another one from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. It is an RSVP only due to the fact that we have limited space, and Grace and Allie will have the sign-up sheet if you want to sign up for tomorrow's session. Now, if you can't make it to tomorrow, there is another one that's going to be happening the first week when we come back on January 8th, 2015. Again, this is very simple. We also going to make available a manual that we have, which is a supervisor manual that explains in very detail how to submit or how to approve or reject the time once it goes live. Now, the workers are also going to be needing some training. To start off with the student workers. Now, that training is going to be available online. It's so simple. It's another manual that will be available online, but we emphasize or we would like for the supervisors to provide that to their employees and let them know about the changes happening. It is very simple. As we know, our students are very familiar with WebAdvisor, so this is going to be very simple for them and easy for them to do. Now, that is a big change that is happening, but there is a lot more. We're so excited. It's something very big, and for that, I'm going to bring, again, Ruth up.
So they thought they'd bring me up for the big stuff. I'm not sure why, if that was relating to size, age, or what exactly is going on here. But there is something really big, and this is the thing that we have been waiting for from day one in the HR pieces. And the thing is called Recruiter. Isn't that a great name, Recruiter? That's what the thing is called. And what the thing is, it's an application and onboarding software package. And it is a package that starts from the moment the applicant opens up their computer and they come to our website and they see a job that they need to have. And it will walk them through that entire process. So that's the applicant side. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about why that's so important. And then it also is, I'm going to talk to you a little bit from the HR side. The company that is making this available and possible to us is Cornerstone On Demand. That's the name of the company. And it is Ellucian's partner. We have vetted them really thoroughly. Ellucian vetted them, of course, much more thoroughly and long before we did. We've talked to all of the other schools that have been using Cornerstone. Carol Coleman worked really closely with Ellucian and Cornerstone to make sure that the contracts that we got were airtight and perfect and the lowest possible cost. So this has been an ongoing endeavor. It was one of the initial recommendations by Ellucian that would bring HR into a much better place where we would be a lot more competitive and we would be on the same par with all of the other schools, universities, and businesses. So the way it works now is we have a really cool website. There's no question. Our website is superb. When you click in to do an application, what you must do is have all of your materials with you because it's a one-shot deal. It's a one-stop shop is kind of how we thought about it. The problem with that is that if you get called away for something or your computer times out or your computer crashes or, I don't know, something happens in your life and you have to walk away, it doesn't save that data for you, the applicant. And you must go back in and do that all over again. For us in the HR side, sometimes things got a little skewed so that you might fill out the pages of the application where it asks you to do the check marks on the boxes and they wouldn't show. Sometimes it actually skipped pages. And so the team spent a lot of time following up with people and saying, your application's not complete. And they'd say, it certainly is. I have it here. I will send it to you. That does not look good. It makes us look a little bit like two men in a phone booth. And it's not certainly not the profile we want to project out into the people who we're trying to woo to come to work with us. This takes away all of that. What is going to happen is that the person will now get online and create their own account. It is their account. They can save documents in it. They can submit things. They can go into their account to see where they were in the process. It will tell them if there are things missing. It will allow them to come in and out as many times as they need to. And then after they submit that application, it allows them to go and see where the application is in the process. So instead of having to pick up a phone or send an email and say, I sent my application, did you get it? They'll be able to see. They'll get a notification, and they'll be able to see just exactly where it is. The really neat thing that I like is that they can also sign up to get notified by AWC of other positions that come available, which I think is really, really wonderful. What a great thing for people. So from the user side, we now have a process that makes us really competitive, makes people who are applying think, wow, this is great. These people know what they're doing, and they're taking care of me. So we really like that. All right. This is going to come in early 2015. We're anticipating that it's going to go online for us probably February, maybe late February. We're not absolutely certain. We expect to be able to roll it out in March, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But benefits from the human resources side are just amazing. We think it will save hundreds of hours. We have not bothered to do the math on that because we figure that would be a waste of our time and the school's money. But we're pretty sure that it literally will be hundreds of hours because the way that process works right now, and I'm just going to be really brief, the application comes in. It gets placed into a file. It gets physically printed out. It gets pre-screened in HR. It goes from the pre-screening loaded onto Blackboard for the screening committee. Back in the back part, we've already had to be working with the supervisors to create the screening committees, making sure those are approved, EEOC standards and all of those kinds of things. We've had to locate rooms. We've had to make sure that the schedules of the screening committee are open and that we can get that committee together at the time that the room is available. And believe it or not, that can get really problematic. And then we try to fit the applicants into those pieces. We go through telephone conferences, we go through consensus, we then bring people in, you get the picture. And it goes on and on like that. All right, what this does is it will do those, are you ready for this? It will do all of those scheduling of hours and times and meetings. It will make sure that rooms are available. It is just clicking that in there. Now, is there back work for us? Sure. We have to put all that data in on the committee members and all that, but once that's in there, the computer program is able to do that for us. We are very excited, as you can imagine. For those of you who have been on screening committees, and as I look around, I think almost everybody has been, when you go into Blackboard now, you have to open it. There's a document that you have to sign. You get to view each of the individual applications separately. Then you go to another document where you do the review sheets. Then you have to send those review sheets to us in time for us to tabulate them. You get it. All right, you're with me on that. None of that happens anymore. It all comes out of Cornerstone. You can go in multiple times, anytime. You get to do your commenting and your rating and your grading right there. And then we get to go in and pull that data out instead of making you submit it and do all of those extra steps. We think hundreds of hours. That's what we're thinking. So easier scheduling, we talked about that. Certainly efficient, a much faster turnaround time. And what is going to happen, because this is so different than what we're doing now, we will be doing training on how to use that program so that every person who goes onto a screening committee will be having to go through the training first. So what we'll be doing, March, possibly April, just depending on how easily the new bumps go. You know, every time you start a new program, there are always a couple little glitches. Once we are sure that all of that is taken care of, then we're going to go ahead and do multiple trainings. And again, they will be hour time slots. We will offer them at multiple times of the day, multiple days of the week, so that people can come, get trained, and then they will be able to serve on the screening committees, and we'll be able to go through that. I am so excited. The team is so excited. Okay, it's a discussion time in a moment, and what I'm going to ask is, because we are recording, if people will come, Junior's going to bring a mic over here, if people will come to the mic to ask their questions. I'm just going to try to put all of us at ease. If you have questions that are really deep about things that we have not yet experienced, we have got the guru and the most wonderful person, Cindy, over here, who will be able to answer those things so that we get you taken care of completely. This is our team. This is our contacts, because if you are like me, I will go home, I'll be driving, or something will happen in the middle of the night, and I'll wake up and I'll think, you know what, I really needed to know that piece of information, and I forgot to ask it. Please call us. That is why we're here. We're here to serve. That's our purpose. Okay, I'm going to turn it over for discussion. You already got the mic and everything up there. Perfect, thank you. Who wants to come first and get into this?
Okay. Hope it doesn't go crazy. Okay. I have to track the employees that work here who are also using VA benefits, a certain chapter. It's called Chapter 33. And in the past, it's been a little challenge to gather that information either from the business office or from HR. Is with this new process, will it be easier to be able to, for me to call you guys and say, give me anyone who is working here who's using Chapter 33 benefits? Because I have to make sure that they're not double dipping every single semester.
And you mean this is the funding source that they're getting paid from? military?
Yes, the students that are using VA benefits.
All right, so I'm not, if there is a benefit set up for it and we have people enrolled in it, then yes. If there's not one set up already, which there's not, then that's not information that we readily have. But it's an easy enough thing that we can do to set up a benefit and have those people associated to it. From there, you can get a report.
Full-time. Well, yeah, full-time because they're the only ones that get the tuition waiver. So,
We can do that.
and I have one more question. This one's about the rapid rehire. When you do rapid rehire, is there a certain time frame? Because I know we have to do background checks for new employees. What's the time frame for not having to do another background check?
For part-time, it's 12 months. If there's a break in service for more than 12 months, we have to do background and all the HR paperwork.
And then full-time, like if someone leaves full-time and then comes back, it's
Same.
also a year?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Very good questions. Anybody else?
Right now, if I want to know my employees, where they are with vacation time, what their accruals are, I have to send a list to Terry, and then she has to go manually pull it and then tell me how many hours they have on the books. So will part of the reporting include the ability for us to just go in there and run our own reports?
But you'll still have to request it from HR because it is protected information. So it's just the same as you have access in Colleague to those screens. So you could say you just need the report for your whole group, and one of those delivered reports will actually give us that information. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't go into WebAdvisor and pull the report. We still make the request through you. Okay, but at least you won't have to hand calculate it all, right, Terry? Okay.
Right, that's the idea.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh,
Long walk.
I know, right?
So can I just say I am super excited about time cards going electronic
Yes.
as well. But I have probably close to 50 part-time employees. And so they have a clock-in system that we use in our center. And then I have somebody who can double-check those records so that I can just sign off on those. Going to this other kind of system, is there any sort of an intermediary step where I wouldn't necessarily have to be the one to go back in and double check all those 50 people's hours?
There is a lot more. All those questions are going to be answered in that training.
supervisor
But there
training.
is a way for
Okay.
you to set up an alternate supervisor.
Okay. I'll take them off the hook. I'll take that one. For institutions that have a clock system, there is an import functionality into web time entry. That is not something that we looked at. This is a phased approach, so it's not something that we looked at in this first phase, but it's certainly something that we can incorporate into our phases.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm the note taker.
Anybody else?
For the instructors at the E-Center, they're not associate faculty, so will we continue to just do a stipend?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. That, as far as how they're paid, that's not going to change. So if they're paid on a stipend record, it's not going to change. Down the road, there is the possibility of maybe incorporating another process called assignment contracts, which would automate the creation of that stipend, but that's not part of this phase either. So it.
Would that be coming because we're learning to create the positions now, and I know we have a place where we enter the instructor information, so later on it would be automated when we enter the colleague and create the position?
I think that's something that we haven't really discussed it because the cleanup portion of the positions was such a large undertaking for this staff that we haven't gotten to piece yet. So we'd have to look at what those positions end up looking like, and then whether or not it makes sense to also incorporate assignment contracts at that time.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just maybe in the future, are there going to be part-time or the part-time requisition request forms? Are those going to be available online, like sick leave requests? Well, is that something that you guys were looking to also put online?
I'll just end up here. There is a separate product which you have not taken advantage of to date, which is called Leave Request Online. That product, along with web time entry, actually is under enhancement and is expected to be delivered in 2016. So my suggestion to the team was when that enhancement comes out, you need to look at that product.
We will be collecting money.
Yeah, I was going to say. More money. And then just one other question to clarify on starting with, you said the web time, all that's going to start for student workers January 1st, then part-timers July 1st. For classified, is that July 1st as well, or that's?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're doing is again, it's a phased approach. We're starting with the students and the student population first, because they already have logins and everything to WebAdvisor. They don't have overtime. They don't have benefits. They're the easiest ones to get up and running because they're straight. Okay, so that's our first group, and then the second one is the other part-timers that are non-benefited, and then we'll start looking again at the full-time. So at this point, it's a phased approach, and we'll analyze the go-live dates, I guess, as we get going. Okay.
And I think I already know the answer to this question, but again, because we have so many different people who are under different budget codes and whatnot, will this be something simple if I contact you and say, can you run a report of people under the Student Success Center, and that way we can double check our records to make sure? Sometimes we have people, like if we've sent them under federal work study, but they're actually supposed to be college payroll or things like that, that we could double check.
Okay, so the way this works is that there's two separate positions. You have a federal work study position, you have a college position. So when that federal work study position is, if someone's changing from federal work study to college, then HR needs to be notified so that they can make that adjustment. Once we have that, then obviously we have the data to give you the report. Okay? But there's that time frame where we have to know, and that integration between financial aid and HR, where we have to know when that person is reaching their financial aid limit, so that we can then have a conversation with HR or with financial aid and take that person out of one position and put them in another position, so we're not in an overage situation. And then, from that we can have reports. So as long as everyone's in the right position at the right time, the reports are accurate. Does that help?
Yes,
Okay.
sort of, yes.
Deborah doesn't like me. I give her always our work. We have 6, 7 budgets, and employees, part-timers and full-times that get paid out of 3, out of 1, out of 6, or the 7. So how would that work for us?
Well, you have that's not really changing with the way we're doing things, okay? So if a person has various positions where they're paid out of various budgets, then they're going to be still separate positions that they have. So down the road, again, when you're looking at these budgets, I hate to keep saying, go ahead.
Yes.
Oh, okay. position budgeting is in place?
Separated. Okay. So we keep doing the same. Okay. Well, I'm trying to say work for you.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah, because one employee gets paid out of 3 budgets out of the, for that week or that pay period.
Yeah. Oh, they pay, okay. Yeah, that will remain manual for right now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any others? Okay.
Okay, going once for questions? Going twice? Sold. Okay, no more questions. In that case, I want to say thank you again for coming. You've seen some of the vocabulary that we've learned. We feel like saying welcome to our world and how nice that is that we were able to share that with you. And you could see a little bit of our joy of some of the great tools that we now have and we will be able to use on your behalf and our behalf and certainly our constituents within and without the community. And one last time, I want to say thank you to Todd Gutierrez for all of the work he's done with us over the past couple of days, and our video photographer back there, and Brenda, you and your team, and Dr. Shaw, you and your team, and Cindy Bryan from Elucian, of course, for just sticking with us and making this good. Cindy and I were kind of sitting up here a few minutes ago, and she said, "I'm so proud of them." And I said, "I'm so proud of us too," because we were really babes in the woods. And, we sort of had, as she put it, that deer in the headlights look, like, you want me to do a what with a who? And what is that report? And what are all those numbers and letters? And we got there, and we're really excited about it, and we look forward to serving and working with you in the future. So again, one last time, if you do find questions when you leave here, please bring them to us. If we don't know those answers, we know how to get hold of her, and we will get those answers. So thanks again.